On this morning, we are doing part 3 of our 4-part construction series. It is important to us that with so many businesses in the construction industry, it is more than just performance. We know performance is important, but for so many businesses, the lack of growth is not based on your ability to perform. It is those issues that arise in the back office. So are you able to understand the contract and the implications of the terms and conditions and the provisions in contracts? Do you have an understanding of the job that you're working on? Do you have a subcontract? Do you understand as a subcontractor how you fit into the project? What is the expectation of the prime and how the expectations to the prime filter down to you? On today, we're talking about bonding. So if you are performing in an entity that is requiring bonding and you've had challenges, we're going to talk to you today about how you overcome those challenges, get the bonding that you need, and fully perform on those contracts, or at least be able to take advantage of all of those contracts that have that requirement. On today, we are partnering with Neylan, who is the founder and president of Surety Bond Associates. Ellen has been a legend in this region in helping small businesses get bonding. She has been a go-to partner with PIDC for many, many, many years. And so we have full faith and confidence in Ellen, not only in her ability to present, but in her ability to walk it like she talks it. So when you need a bond, Ellen is our go-to person to help you get a bond. She's a broker. She's a surety bond broker. And so she has access to a variety of sureties, and she will work with you. And this has been our absolute experience. Ellen will work with you hand in hand to get you prepared so that you are acceptable and eligible for a surety bond. So with that, it's always a pleasure to work with Ellen. And so on to this morning, it is 9:06. We're scheduled to go to 10:30. Ellen Neylan, founder and president of Surety Bond Associates, take it away.
Thank you, Marla, especially for that wonderful introduction. Marla's correct. PIDC has been a partner for Surety Bond Associates and our clients for many, many years. They are one of the reasons we've been able to successfully assist small contractors. Before I get started, I just wanted all of you to know that we are a surety bond broker. We're located in the Philadelphia suburbs, and our specialty is assisting small minority women and veteran-owned construction companies in accessing all the financial resources they need to qualify for bonding and financing. I started out my career working for the surety companies. So many of my relationships that Marla described are actually with people that I used to work with that I still maintain very, very strong relationships with. I started our brokerage business quite accidentally. I left the surety industry to start a .com back in 2000, and we failed miserably. And I learned what not to do. And when I started my business, I had the full support of the Small Business Administration. They had have a surety bond guarantee program. They had a surety bond guarantee office in Philadelphia. That's no longer there, but it was through working with them and getting access to resources I needed to start my business, including being a client of the Temple SBDC incubator program, that I learned about all of the resources that are available to help small minority women and veteran-owned contractors get access to financing and bonding and other resources that they need to grow their business. So I launched Surety Bond Associates with that as my focus. And we developed a bonding assistance program for the city of Philadelphia, the first of its kind. back in 2002, and we haven't looked back since. And I'm very pleased to be here with all of you today, and we're going to learn about contract surety bonds and how they're used in construction. If you're looking to grow your business in particularly public works construction, you're going to need to know about bonding and how to get access to it. So let's get started with the three main types of surety bonds. The bid bond is required in order to bid as a prime contractor on any City of Philadelphia project if you're a construction business. The bid bond is usually for 10% of whatever your bid price is. And what that guarantees is that if you are awarded a contract, if you're a low bidder and awarded a contract, that you will be able to sign that contract, enter into the contract, and be able to provide performance and payment bonds. Many times you'll see in bid documents that other forms of security are acceptable to the project owner, such as a certified check. Never put up your own cash to secure a bid, because if you do and you default on that bid and you aren't prepared to provide a performance and payment bond when you sign that contract, you will be in default of that bid. And the owner, through the security, whether it's a bid bond or a certified check, they can award the job to the next lowest bidder. And if it's a certified check, guess what happens? They cash your check. If you've bid with a bid bond, the surety company is standing behind you, and they will support you and help you work out getting out of that bid. So the performance bond is required once you are awarded the contract, and that is going to be for 100% of whatever the contract price is. And that performance bond is going to guarantee that you're going to perform that contract that you've just been awarded in accordance with all the terms and conditions of the contract. So you better have read it before you bid on the project, because you are committing your resources to be able to perform not only the terms and conditions, but also for the price that you quoted, and in whatever time frame is required of that contract. So it's very important to have a good construction attorney. Horn Williamson will be in the next, leading the next PIDC workshop series. You really need to sit in on that, because they are an excellent resource when it comes to reviewing contracts and negotiating those contracts. The payment bond in construction is usually always paired with a performance bond. And that payment bond is also equal to 100% of the contract price. So you're actually getting 200% coverage when you provide a performance and payment bond. The performance bond is for 100% and the payment bond is 100%. And that payment bond protects your subs and your material suppliers against you not paying. So in public construction, since you can't file liens against public buildings, this is often the only protection these folks have, is the payment bond. Now, yes?
Sorry, so we have one question, our first question of the day from Dee Shield. She just needs, he or she just needs they need a clarification on the bid bond that you were speaking of earlier.
A clarification on it?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
the bid bond is
the 10% specifically.
The bid bond is guaranteeing your bid, and the 10% security requirement represents the liquidated damages that the project owner can use if they have to award the job to the next lowest bidder. So say your bid is $100,000. the value of your bid bond is 10% of that, or $10,000. So if the next lowest bidder bids at 107,000, you've bid at 100, you've been awarded the contract, but you either don't sign it, you don't want to move forward with it, or you can't provide performance and payment bonds, you're in default of your bid. And that difference between your bid and the next bidder, which in this case was 7,000, the project owner can use, if you put a cashier's check up, they can cash in $7,000 of that cashier's check that you used to secure your bond or your bid, and they can use that to award the job to the next lowest bidder. That's how the competitive sealed bid system works, and surety bonds make sure that that process works. So you're always safer bidding with a bid bond because, number one, the surety's already saying with their bid bond, you're going to get that performance and payment bond if you're low bidder. But if you're going in with your own cash, there's no guarantee that there's a surety lined up to provide you with a performance and payment bond if you default on your bid. So you're risking your own assets in that case. So hopefully that answered the question. And it will become more clear as we go through the rest of the slides. So who requires bonds? The federal government was the first to require surety bonds, and that was way back in the late 1800s. There were a ton of unfinished federal buildings. They discovered that the contractors that they had hired to build these buildings either were insolvent when they hired them or didn't have the wherewithal to complete the projects and abandoned the projects. And the federal government had to go back and raise more money from the taxpayers to finish these projects. And that's really why bonding is required by law. It's required at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And it's really meant to protect taxpayer dollars. So back in the late 1800s, Congress passed a law requiring the use of bid, performance, and payment bonds on construction projects. That law has changed over the years, but as of 1935, the law that is still on the books today is called the Miller Act. And that Miller Act requires performance and payment bonds on contracts over $150,000. So, you know, in federal contracting, the projects are usually much larger. That's pretty much any federal project in construction. State and local governments, the requirements vary. Many states have passed what are called Little Miller Acts. It's a law similar to the federal law that's on the books. And they require bid, performance, and payment bonds on contracts over a certain size. In Pennsylvania, for example, the threshold is 100,000. So any project over 100,000 will require bid, performance, and payment bonds. Any project in the city of Philadelphia, because the local laws are different, the city of Philadelphia requires bonds on any contract over 50,000. Other local jurisdictions just outside of Philly, you might see bonding required on projects as small as $10,000 or $15,000. So the important thing to know is if you're bidding as a prime contractor, you need to know what the bonding requirements are before you even start to bid. You need to establish a relationship with a surety company before you start bidding. And we'll get into that whole process and what's involved with that. Because the last thing you want, again, is to be in that first example of bidding on the perfect job that you've been waiting for your whole life and not having a bonding program lined up. So you risk your money and you default on your bid. And all of that could have been avoided if you had planned properly. Private sector also requires bonding. Private owners like bonding for the same reasons that the public sector does. They want to make sure their project is being bid and awarded to a competent, qualified contractor. They want it to be completed in accordance with all the terms and conditions of their contract. And they want to make sure that any subs and suppliers that are used on the project are protected against non-payment. And the reason that that's so important, especially in the private sector side, is that subs and suppliers that aren't paid can file liens against the project, and that halts the funding. Lending institutions require bonding if they're lending money to a private owner. And again, for the same reason that the owner wants it, they want to make sure their lending capital is protected and that there won't be any liens filed, and the project will be completed on time and on budget. General contractors, especially when you're in having economic difficulties like we are today, they require bonds of their subcontractors. They want to mitigate the default with subcontractors, and even when you're coming out of a recession, the risk of subcontractor failure is still really huge for a period of time because as a subcontractor, the sub is usually taking on a lot of the risk. The GC is managing the project, but it's the subcontractors that are responsible for all of the resources, the manpower, and the materials. So GCs will require subcontractor bonding. It could be over a certain dollar threshold. It could be required of any new subcontractor that they've never worked with before. It could be because of a critical path subcontractor, maybe, that if that sub defaults, it's going to, throw the whole project into chaos. So again, it's important to know what your subcontractor or what your GCs are requiring, especially on larger public or commercial projects. Many times they don't require bid bonds, but they may require you to provide them with a bondability letter so that they know that you've got a bonding company established in the background. Most large GCs in Philadelphia will require bonding to get through their pre-qualification process. So if you're a trade contractor looking to grow your business on larger projects, you're going to want to get set up with bonding so that you can meet the subcontractor pre-qualification requirements. So bonds are frequently confused with insurance, and it makes sense because it's insurance companies that provide the bonding. They're the financial backing to the contractor. So insurance companies are big financial institutions that have the capital that is required to support bonding. But the act of obtaining a bond is actually more like obtaining a line of credit. The process is way more similar to applying for a loan than it is to apply for insurance. If you can afford insurance, chances are you're going to get it regardless of the risk. But you've got to qualify for bonding just like you would have to qualify for a bank loan. So you've got to go through a pre-qualification process, which surety companies also call underwriting, like banks call their application process underwriting. And you've got to be able to prove to the surety that you've got the experience and the capital to complete the project. And also, this is how it works like a loan. if there's a claim on a bond and a surety company actually pays out on your behalf, whether it's due to your performance default, let's say they have to bring in a replacement contractor and they're going to have to come up with the funding to bring that replacement contractor in, you're obligated to pay back that surety company anything they spend because of your inability to complete your project or pay your subs and suppliers. You're going to be obligated to pay that surety company back. And you're going to be asked to sign what's known as an indemnity agreement. And that spells out your obligation to the surety company. So the surety company, if the project is halfway along the way, they actually can take over the project and use whatever money is left in the job that the project owner or the GC hasn't spent. So they can use whatever's left in the project to offset the cost of hiring a replacement contractor. But anything over and above that, you would be required to pay back. So at that point, the product turns into a loan. You'll be expected at some point to pay the surety company back. They will have already gotten this indemnity agreement signed before they ever provide you with your first bond. You will have to obligate your business and personally, and if you're married, your spouse will have to sign the surety company's indemnity agreement too. And the reason that's required is surety companies want to make sure that the money on the project that they're bonding and any other financial resources that are part of the business stay in the business in the event that there is a claim and they're brought in to settle the dispute. So they want to make sure that that money isn't going to disappear someday into a spouse's bank account. So that's why they require the business, the owners, and spouses to sign this indemnity agreement. The cost of bonding is also similar to an interest rate that you pay for a loan. Most surety companies charge either a flat rate of between 2 and 3% of the contract price, and that's a rate that that is charged to smaller contractors. Once you get a little bit bigger, the rates go down, but it's usually a percentage of the contract price, similar to what you would expect to pay on a bank loan if you were applying for a line of credit. That, whatever the rate is a job cost that you're including in with your bid, because it's the project owner or the GC that's getting the benefit of that bond. They're requiring you to get the bond, but they're paying for it ultimately. So make sure you include the cost of all your bonding in with your bid. You have to qualify for it, but the owner is paying for it. So here's just kind of a review of the basic principles of contract surety. A surety bond is a three-party obligation versus an insurance policy, which is a two-party obligation between you and the insurance company. And a surety bond, they're protecting that third party, whether it's the project owner or the GC, whoever above you is requiring the bond. So you've got the surety company, you've got the owner or GC, and the contractor. Those are the three parties to a surety bond. Surety companies are involved in this whole competitive sealed bid process and the process of bonding subcontracts as a way to pre-qualify contractors, because public owners don't have the resources to do it. And most GCs, quite frankly, don't have the resources to pre-qualify all of their subcontractors. So they rely heavily on the surety industry to do that for them. And the surety companies put contractors through a pretty exhaustive pre-qualification process that we'll talk about in a couple minutes. Surety bonds guarantee contract completion and payment to subs and suppliers. So those are the main features of a surety bond, and you can see how it differs from insurance. So in the surety's pre-qualification process, they are performing a very in-depth review at the contractor's entire business operation. What they're trying to focus on in this process is not only the contractor's ability to take on the work that they're asking the surety company to bond, they also want to make sure that they've got the wherewithal to meet their current and future financial obligations, whether the surety is bonding those obligations or not. So they're going to be looking at projects that contractors are working on or considering. They want to make sure that there isn't anything that is going to cause a contractor financial loss, whether it be on their project or other projects in their backlog. Because the temptation is, if there's a project over here that is pretty risky and could end up causing the contractor to lose money, the contractor is apt to take money from the project the surety's bonding and move it over there to satisfy other contract obligations. So they're looking at all of that, and they're also looking at the contractor's ability to pay them back in the event there is a loss. Because again, the surety is guaranteeing that you're going to perform your contracts in accordance with all the terms and conditions of that contract, and that you're going to pay everybody. So that's a big guarantee that that they're providing for not a lot of cost. I mean, you think about it. If they're guaranteeing your project for usually around 3% or less, that's less than you would pay for a bank loan. So it's fairly inexpensive coverage, and it's actually a cost that you're passing on to the project owner anyway. The goal of this pre-qualification process is the surety wants to make sure, and so does the project owner or whoever is requiring the bond, that the contractor they've hired to do this work runs a well-managed, sound business, that they maintain fair business practices, that they have a good reputation in the industry, that they have a good performance track record, and they perform their obligations as they agree. So they're looking at, again, similar things that a bank would be looking at. They're looking at the contractor's capacity to perform. And that is, does the contractor have the experience and the track record to perform the type of work and the size work that they're asking the surety to guarantee? Most of the surety's emphasis is on the capital structure of the business and the contractor's financial strength. Do they have the financial wherewithal to perform their obligations financially? And do they have the ability to cash flow their projects? Do they have enough capital in their business to be able to meet their current and future obligations while they're maybe getting waiting to get paid by the GC or the project owner that the surety's bond is running to. So they're going to be looking at that. I would say probably 75% of the emphasis is placed on the capital structure. Then they're looking at the contractor's character. Do they have a good reputation? What's the culture in the business? Do they have a good reputation? Sureties check a lot of references, and they want to make sure that they're doing business with contractors that they can count on if problems happen. And guess what? Problems happen. And we always encourage our customers, if you are having a problem, whether it's with a project owner or a GC, let us know. Let us know, and we can provide you with guidance and assistance. We can even get the surety company involved if we have to. You don't want to keep these things a secret because we're guaranteeing your obligations. So you need to let us know if something is starting to not feel right or head south before it's beyond a situation that can be turned around and rectified, because surety companies are not in the business of just writing checks. They want to support their contractors. They really want you to be the primary responsible party. And even when there is a claim situation, they want their clients to take care of it. They're standing behind the scenes, making sure that, you know, the claims are processed in an efficient way, and they are protecting the project owner or the GC, but they really are trying to make sure that the obligation gets completed, and preferably it gets completed by their customer. So they want to have a good relationship with their contractors that they're bonding. A lot of that is through the surety agent. So you want to have a good relationship with your surety agent. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they want to know that if there is a problem, they can come to you, you will respond to them. And if you do ever hear from a surety claim department, you really need to respond timely because they don't want to have loss. So just remember that. So we're going to get into all of these categories a little bit more in depth. So hopefully you'll understand more about what we're talking about. For capacity to perform, the surety is looking at the track record and history of the company. So they're going to ask you to complete a contractor questionnaire, which is similar to if you've ever been pre-qualified as a sub with any of the larger GCs. It's a very, very similar process. So they're going to look at the track record and history of the owners and the key personnel. They want to make sure everyone's got a good, solid background in construction. They also check your trade references. That's part of this application. So they're going to talk to engineers that you've worked with, project owners that you've worked with, suppliers that you've worked with, GCs, just to get an understanding of what types of jobs you've done. They usually like to check references on your 3 largest projects. They look at the structure of your business and the reporting hierarchy. If you're a small company, you might not have a project manager or a superintendent. You might be all of those things wrapped into one. But if you're a little bit larger organization, they want to make sure your project managers have construction experience, your superintendents have good experience. So they look at all that and they get resumes on your key employees and the owners of the construction company. They look at your tools and equipment, especially if you're in a a really specialty niche that requires specialty tools and equipment to perform your obligations. They want to make sure you either own the tools and equipment or you can lease them. They look at business and continuity plans. They want to make sure that you have thought through a transition plan or a continuity plan or a succession plan. In the event something happens to the owner of the construction company, they want to make sure that there's been some thought given as to how your projects are going to be completed if the owner is no longer able to be involved in the company. So they look at things like continuity plans and key man life insurance to make sure that there's some funding mechanism in place to hire a construction manager to complete any unfinished projects if something happens to the owner. They really place a lot of emphasis on your projects, both from the past and your current projects and future projects. They look at job schedules. They use those job schedules to forecast the cash flow in your projects in progress. They also look at job schedules over time to make sure that your original profit has maintained, and at the end of the job that you still earned a profit. They look at projects that you've lost money on, and they may want to talk to you about that and find out what went wrong and what you would have done different and what learning experience you got from that situation. They look at your current projects in progress and future projects. They want to make sure that you're not overextending yourself. So they look at this on a very regular basis. They usually ask you for financial statements once or twice a year, but they're going to be looking at your job schedules throughout the year if you're actively using bonds.
Hi, Ellen.
Yep.
Hello, great information so far. I just wanted to pause and remind everyone that we are welcoming questions. So please use our Q&A as well as our raised hand function if you have any questions during Ellen's presentation. And Ellen, we also have one more from Dee Shields who asks, this is for all bids. She wants to know, they want to know.
If what is for all bids? I don't understand the question.
Dee Shields, would you like to clarify? We can also have you use the raise hand function. Pre-qualifications.
Usually the pre-qualification process is when you're initially applying for a bonding program. So you wouldn't have to go through this every single time you need a bond. When you go through the pre-qualification process, you get kind of a line of bonding credit from the surety company. They'll let you know what size single jobs they're willing to entertain, as well as what your aggregate program is. So this is kind of like an initial pre-qualification process. You will be updating the surety with information on a regular basis, but the real heavy lift is the first time you apply for bonding. And then once you have a relationship, it turns into more or less ordering bonds for specific projects. And every project requires a separate bond.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Dee Shields, for your question. Again, if anyone has any questions during today, please use our Q&A function as well as our raised hand option. Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome. So I think we left off on the insurance certificate. That's also a requirement. Surety companies want to make sure not only are you in compliance with whatever the insurance requirements are in your contract, but they also want to make sure that you have sufficient insurance coverage to protect any risks associated with your business. So they're going to be looking at that because they don't want there to be any exposures that could have been insured against that might cause a financial risk to your company. So this is, again, where sureties place a lot of their emphasis, just like a bank would, is on your financial strength. So they're looking at detailed financial statements, and don't be nervous if you don't have these detailed financial statements available right now, because there are resources for smaller contractors that we'll go over in a couple of minutes. But this is what a typical surety company is going to be looking for from their contractors that have regular bond needs over a certain dollar threshold. And that dollar threshold is usually over about $500,000 to $1 million. So they're going to want you to be able to provide detailed financial statements, usually CPA prepared, most frequently CPA prepared, review quality financial statements if your single jobs are over $1 million. And they want very detailed, very comprehensive financial statements, preferably prepared by a construction CPA firm. And again, they look at your contract schedules, both your projects in progress as well as your completed contracts. With the completed contract schedule, they're looking at, whether or not the completed contracts were profitable, and make sure that the profit you did earn on those completed projects was sufficient to cover your overhead expenses, which are your general and administrative expenses, things like office rent, office salaries, expenses that aren't specific to performing the job. Your work in progress schedules, they're looking at the cash flow that is coming out of those projects to cover your future costs. They want contractors to maintain really solid accounting and specifically job cost accounting records. So they're going to be looking at and evaluating your job cost accounting systems. We offer training through our rebuild program, which I'll be talking about at the end. And we teach you how to set up your QuickBooks for construction, which is really so very important, that your back office systems are set up properly so that you can better manage not only your business, but also be able to become a better estimator in the process. So having a good, accurate job cost accounting system in-house is critical for bonding purposes. They look at profitability trends, cash flow projections. Again, they're looking at that from your job schedules. They check credit references, both of the business as well as personal credit references. Many times for smaller businesses, the business doesn't have a lot of credit history. So in that situation, they're going to be looking at the personal credit reports a little bit closer. They want contractors to have a bank line of credit. That's really critical, especially once you get into public work. And if you're a subcontractor to a GC on a big public or commercial project, you might not get paid as quickly as you would like. So the bank line of credit is a resource that you can use to continue to meet your current obligations while you're waiting to get paid by the owner. They also,
Ellen, I'm sorry, if I could just interrupt, I can't let that part go by. PIDC has offered a contract line of credit specifically to contractors, but not exclusively to contractors. We've been doing this for at least 10, 15 years. And the idea is for businesses that have challenges getting a traditional line of credit with a bank, then PIDC can offer you a very low interest line of credit that will help you on a particular contract, on a contract by contract basis. We can advance on approved invoices. And it really has been a lifesaver for a lot of smaller contractors because number one, they're either unable to get traditional bank financing, but number two, which is worse, is it forces you into a very predatory relationship with hard money lenders. We have helped companies that have had lines of credit with interest rates as high as 42% and everything in between. And so for PIDC, our lines of credit, we have one line of credit that we offer just for contractors. It is 3.5% on an annual basis. And so when you're looking at what a bonding company requires, it's a lot of the same information that would be required by PIDC. We all are extending some level of credit. So all of the information, not all of it, but some of the information that Ellen is offering today that would be required for you to get bonding, some of that same information is what we would require to help you get the line. So we'll talk about the line in a future webinar. And at some point today, Ellen's going to talk about the partnership that she has and that PIDC has with the city in the rebuild project. But today, if you need a line of credit because you're on a project and it's going to take a period of time before you are able to get paid, please give us a call and let's talk through your financial needs and see if PIDC can help. And I'll put the email address again in the chat box. Sorry, Ellen, thank you.
Okay. That's okay. I actually have you in a upcoming slide. PIDC is, and their line of credit is a great resource to contractors and actually helps enhance your ability to get bonding. The surety is also going to ask for your personal financial statement. They don't necessarily use that to strengthen your ability to qualify for bonding, but what they're looking at there is in the event you do get into trouble and they do have a loss, they're looking at things like equity in real estate that you might be able to utilize to get a line of credit, a home equity line of credit, so that you can pay them back. So that's kind of what they're looking at. They look at your cash balances. They're looking at, other things that if something does go wrong with your business, that you've got some resources to back your obligation on a personal level. Sometimes they require contractors to, if they're bonding a contractor, for example, that's been in business for many, many years, never needed bonding before, and developed a practice of taking all the assets out of the business at the end of the year, and they're withholding those assets personally, the bonding company may want to see you reinvest some of those assets back in the business so that you're creating enough capital in your business to support your obligations without, necessarily having to turn to personal financial resources. They're also looking at any tax returns of other businesses that you own. They probably will want those businesses included on that indemnity agreement because they don't want, again, any of the assets disappearing from the business that they're bonding and being transferred into another business entity or a personal account without them having that in their indemnification package. I think a lot of banks require the same thing. So here's an example of a balance sheet that would be something produced by your CPA. And I just wanted to show you a couple of the financial benchmarks, the main ones that surety companies use to determine bonding capacity. The big one is working capital. And that represents the difference between your total current assets, and those are liquid, considered, liquid assets, cash, accounts receivable, things like that. And then they subtract your current liabilities. So a bonding company is always going to want to make sure that you've got sufficient cash assets to pay any current liabilities that are coming due for the next 12 months. So in this case, we've got total current assets of 3.6 million, total current liabilities of 2.6 million, and that leaves this contractor with a working capital position of about $1 million. With that, the surety usually multiplies that $1 million by 10. And that's how much aggregate bonding capacity they would probably be willing to provide a contractor with a balance sheet like this. The single job size will be based on other criteria, and that's where they get into reviewing your job history. And they'll look at the largest job that you completed, and maybe, I don't know, maybe your largest job was $1 million. So in this case, the bonding company might provide this contractor, they would double that largest job size, maybe a little bit more even. But they would give somebody, a contractor like this, a 2 million single, as long as their aggregate usage doesn't exceed 10 million. Okay. They also look at the contractor's equity or net worth or members' equity if you're an LLC. So in this case, this contractor has $1.3 million in equity. They want to make sure that the contractor is reinvesting in their business, and they can tell that by the retained earnings, which is the line just above stockholders' equity. So this contractor has retained almost $1 million in earnings over the years. They've had to invest an additional paid-in capital amount of about $340,000, and that's where this equity position comes in. You don't always see additional paid-in capital, but that might have been a result of a contractor that has been in business for a while that was taking everything out, and the surety company wanted them to put some back in the company to support their bond needs. They're also looking at the contractor's overall debt structure related to their equity position. They don't want them to be over leveraged with a lot of debt. So that's kind of how a bonding company would use this balance sheet. And they look at this on an annual basis to determine what your bond needs are going to be for the next 12 months. So this balance sheet would have been something included in your fiscal year-end CPA reviewed financial statement. And this, along with everything else that was included in that financial report, would be evaluated by the bonding company, and they would use this to determine your bonding capacity for the next year. This is an example of a work in progress schedule, a typical schedule that you might see included in the CPA's financial report, and also a schedule that your bonding company would expect you to provide on a regular basis. This tells them a lot about the revenues that you're generating from your projects, the estimated profit that you originally estimated in your project, the cost of those revenues, and the actual gross profit and loss that you've experienced to date. We have spreadsheets that do all of these calculations for you. So all you really have to enter is the total contract price, which is the revenues. You have to enter the estimated gross profit that you originally estimated. Then you enter the actual cost of revenues and your billings to date. And then the form does all the calculations for you. So from this, the surety company would be looking at, they're going to be looking at your estimated cost to complete whatever projects are still in your backlog. In this case, there's $371,000 left in contracts to complete. So they take that number and subtract it from the 10 million in aggregate bonding that they're willing to commit to a company with the balance sheet we showed you before. And that's how they determine how much additional bonding they're willing to support with this job schedule and the previous balance sheet. So this contractor has a lot of bonding capacity left to be utilized. So if this were the flip side and they had $9 million in estimated cost to complete in their backlog, the bonding company would tighten up approving new bonded projects at that point. Any questions? We'd be happy to provide Marla with our Excel spreadsheet so that you can start producing these schedules in your office now. It's a really good management tool to see where all your projects are.
Ellen, that's great. Thank you. If you just email that, we'll make sure that we get that to each of today's attendees.
And anybody that has any questions, obviously, about how to complete that, they can reach out to me. Your character. This is often the most difficult area of the process to evaluate. So we're looking at the owner's reputation, the organization's reputation for dealing fairly and professionally with project owners, subcontractors, suppliers, lenders, and anyone else they come in contact within the industry. And we get a lot of this information again from that application, but bonding companies really rely heavily on the bond broker or bond agent's relationship with the contractor. So they're really expecting that the bonding agent is going to really try to get to know their clients as much as possible so that we, in essence, can vouch for their character. If problems happen on jobs, and again, they do, bonding companies typically will reach out to the contractor and the bonding agent to help, get the dialogue flowing to try to resolve the problem as quickly and as less financial cost as possible. So your bonding agent is going to be involved in helping you gather all the information we talked about so far. So you really want to pick your bonding agent carefully. A lot of insurance agents claim to provide bonding, but their specialty is really insurance. So chances are the bond broker or agent that they're using is a third party that you'll never get to know. So you really should, if you're serious about getting established with a bonding company, having a direct relationship with the bonding agent. The bonding company is going to prefer it that way. And it's really in your best interest to do that as well. So the agent is who is going to establish a relationship with the surety company, and it's the surety company that's taking on all the risk. We're kind of like the marketing arm of the surety company. Surety Bond Associates represents about 10 surety companies right now. They all have different appetites for risk. Some like GCs, some like electrical contractors, some like small MWBEs more than others. Some offer resources to help small contractors get established for bonding. Some only want to bond contractors that are a little bit more established. So you're going to want to make sure when you're picking your bond agent that you've got somebody that can help you today and help you grow your business and has other markets for you to possibly grow into, and that you're working with somebody that has a direct relationship with the bonding company. Because it's the agent that's going to be telling your story. You might get to meet the surety underwriter at some point, and we usually try to encourage that to happen, but you might not. So pick an agent that's got a good reputation in the surety business, that's connected to the marketplace that you're in. We had a situation recently that was just a complete disaster. We had to try to get in and help the contractor figure it out, but they bid on a job with an agent out in California on a Philadelphia project. And the agent didn't really give them a bond. They gave them a letter, and it was just a complete mess. So you need to have a direct relationship with whoever's representing you on the bonding side. They should have experience in construction accounting and finance and access to banks and lenders, like alternative lenders like PIDC, to help you get financing when you can't get traditional financing. And they obviously should have knowledge of the surety industry and construction risk management and relationships with multiple surety companies. A lot of insurance agents have, if they do dabble in bonding, they might have relationships with one or two surety companies. Your needs probably aren't going to be best met in an environment like that. So benefits of surety bonds. Obviously, the owner is the primary beneficiary of bonding, or the GC, if you're a sub providing a bond to a GC. Bonding provides that entity with a pool of qualified bidders. They know that you've gone through that, that pre-qualification process that we just went through, and you've got a bonding company that's committing their assets to guarantee your bid. Bonds reduce the risk of financial liens and financial loss. This is especially true, the risk of liens on private projects, but performance bonds reduce the risk of financial loss on public projects. That way the public owner doesn't have to go out to the taxpayer to raise more money to finish those jobs. Bonding increases the likelihood of timely project completion. Nobody wants a project that goes, you know, over the allotted time frame or over budget. So bonds make sure that this can take place. And the performance bond protects against defective materials and workmanship for whatever the maintenance period is in the contract, and that's usually a year. So if something goes wrong within that year, the performance bond guarantees that the contractor is going to come back and fix it. Believe it or not, you folks also benefit from bonding. If you get established with a bonding program, even if you never use it, even if it's never required of you, if you can include your bonding limits on your capability statement, it's going to open all kinds of doors for you. In the private sector, as a sub to GCs, bonding increases your access to projects, plain and simple, and allows you to start growing your business and start bidding as a prime contractor someday. When you can provide assurance to your subs and suppliers on a project where you're carrying the bond, you're going to get better terms and conditions from those subs and suppliers if they know that they've got the financial protection of a payment bond, guaranteeing that they're going to get paid. So you might not have to pay them up front. Plus you have the access to the surety company's claim department, which is full of construction attorneys, construction consultants, engineers, architects. You have access to those resources because, again, they really want you to be successful. If you're successful and you grow your business, that's how they make money, on premiums, on bonds that you're going to need. And the bigger the bond, the bigger the premium. So it's in their best interest to support their contractors. They sometimes provide financial assistance. If you're having trouble meeting payroll and you're on a project and the GC isn't paying you, the surety company can, maybe advance you some money to make payroll. I used to sit outside of one of our claim attorneys' offices at one of the surety company jobs I had, and invariably he'd get a call on a Friday afternoon from some contractor that wasn't able to meet payroll, and he'd have to wire them money. So there is that added benefit. I mentioned that there's resources available. If you don't have sophisticated financial statements yet, or you haven't been in business a long time to have accumulated working capital and equity in your business, we have other resources available to help you get bonding. We have fast track programs for small contractors with good credit, and that usually means a credit score over 685. If you have a personal credit score over that threshold, you can qualify for up to $1 million in aggregate bonding just based on your credit score and the fact that you've got construction experience and you've been in business for a year. That's a huge, huge resources. And a lot of our clients start out there, and then we work with them to develop them from a behind the scenes standpoint. We help them get set up with a CPA. We help them get their accounting system set up. We help them produce a financial statement that is going to allow them to expand and grow their bonding capacity. If you don't have good credit, there's also resources available. And even if you do have good credit, the SBA Surety Bond Guarantee Program helps a lot of small contractors overcome the hurdle of applying for and receiving that first bond. In the SBA program, you don't have to have the CPA reviewed financial statement. You don't have to have clean credit. They don't even look at credit in the SBA. So that's a resource that we have available for many of our clients. And as I said earlier, PIDC's contract line of credit is also a good resource to help you enhance your ability to get bonding. If a surety company knows that PIDC is providing you with financing, then that helps them provide you with bonding. Project funds disbursement is another tool that we use frequently with smaller contractors, and that's where the surety company or one of their third-party funds control providers actually manages the payments on the project. And that's usually where the surety's exposure is, not so much on the performance side, but on the payment side. So if they can help manage that process through their funds control provider, chances are you're going to be able to get bonding. And it also teaches you good habits on how you should be managing your projects from a cash flow standpoint. There are bonding assistance programs. We had one with the city of Philadelphia. We're running one right now for the city of New York. And they provide financial resources and access to technical assistance to help you with the bond application process. We're also offering that assistance through the Rebuild Ready program that I'm going to talk about at the end in a couple minutes. SuretyLearn.org, if you have insomnia and you can't sleep and you want to learn everything you ever wanted to know about bonding, you can check this out. They've got a lot of resources and videos and information about bonding. The Surety Bond Guarantee Program that I mentioned provides up to a 90% guarantee to the surety. So that helps them relax their underwriting requirements. To qualify, you can't be a nonprofit. You've got to be independently owned. You have to qualify under the SBA's federal regulations. They will consider bonds on contracts up to $6.5 million. You've got to be in good standing, though, and not debarred from any government agency. They also offer a quick bond application for contracts up to $400,000, which is a very simple one-page process. Project funds disbursement, we kind of talked about. The funds control provider actually establishes a separate project account to receive project payments and pay project expenses. When we're bonding a project that's financed by PIDC's contract line of credit, the funds control provider also pays down PIDC's loan. They provide, you can get overhead and profit dispersed from project funds control. They monitor lien waivers, and it really is meant to be used as a tool to enhance your ability to obtain surety bonds, and hopefully you won't need to be in funds control for more than, maybe a couple projects or maybe just a larger project. So in terms of how these tools impact bonding, that first example in a standard program, the contractor had $1 million in working capital. They could qualify for $10 million in bonding capacity. If they were guaranteeing their bonds with the SBA guarantee, that aggregate could go up to 15 million. So it's like 1.5 times what they would get in the standard market. Sometimes in funds control, we can double a contractor's bonding capacity. So that's kind of how these tools are used to enhance your bonding. So that's all I have on contract bonding. This is my contact information. I see my email address isn't on here, but I'm sure Jasmine and Marla can get you in touch with me. I'll have to add that next time. Is there any questions about bonding before I move into the rebuild program?
We will have this presentation available on our website, and we will post that link again.
Okay. So we only.
So Ellen, yep, why don't you go right into the project you're working on with the city on rebuild?
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. I'll make this quick. A lot of you probably have heard of the rebuild program. That's the soda tax. Part of the soda tax is going towards renovating parks, libraries, and recreation centers. The rebuild office has very high diversity goals, and they want as many local, minority, and women-owned contractors as possible to participate in these programs. And they've hired Surety Bond Associates as a consultant to help prepare contractors to bid and be prepared to bid on rebuild projects. The Rebuild Ready Business Support Program was developed to help you obtain or increase your bonding capacity. We provide you with access to capital, and I don't know if you mentioned this yet, Marla, or not, but we're working with PIDC on a special loan program for rebuild projects. We offer a cohort training program. It's a 12-week training program in construction management. We have a team of consultants that we've been working with now for several years that teach all of our workshops and are also available for free one-on-one technical assistance to help you bid on these projects, help you improve your estimating skills. We help you with cash flow and financial management. We help you with your certified payroll, payment applications through Rebuild Ready. If you're not already certified, we can help you get certified as an M or WBE. These are some of the essential services that are offered through Rebuild Ready Business Support Program. Certification assistance. We have a small contractor capacity assessment process that the nonprofit project users, there's two different project users, the PRA, the Redevelopment Authority, and nonprofit project users do have a pre-qualification process, and we're helping contractors get through that pre-qualification process, which is almost identical to the bond application process we just talked about. We're offering accounting and financial management assistance. We have a construction CPA that teaches you how to set up QuickBooks and is available for one-on-one assistance to help you transition whatever accounting system you currently use into a QuickBooks for construction environment. We provide you with assistance in preparing your bond application, provide access to mobilization capital, and construction procurement and back office assistance. One of our consultants also does site visits and project monitoring and provides assistance with field operations. So we've developed a very comprehensive program to mentor MWBEs and increase their participation in rebuild projects, which will hopefully translate into additional opportunities with the city of Philadelphia in the future. We are recruiting right now for our next cohort. We're not sure when it's going to start, but here's a link to the application. We are co-managing this program with the Enterprise Center, Surety Bond Associates and our team, our focus is on construction and financial management. The Enterprise Center is also offering entrepreneurial workshop series. Those workshop series have been going on side by side. We're not sure how the next cohort will be structured, but we are working on that right now and accepting applications. You don't have to wait for the cohort to start. You can get active now and we can start helping you get prepared to bid on these rebuild projects sooner than later. Because I think we might only have 3 years left in this program, Marla. So are there any questions about rebuild?
I also want to add, I just put it in the chat. If there are topics that you have concerns about or you need more information on that we have not offered, please feel free to put those topics in the chat. We know that you are expert in the delivery of your product and service. We know that. But it's always those back office issues that keep you from getting your business to that next level of growth. And so those are the topics that PIDC looks to focus. We want to focus on those areas. And if we can't provide that information in a webinar, that's when we also bring in our partners. So again, the business education component, Ellen is running Rebuild Ready. It is a free program. We also have our partners at the Community College of Philadelphia, both with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program and with Power Up Your Business. Power Up Your Business actually gives you 2 options. It is a 12 or 13 week cohort, or you can take individual workshops. And then, as we stated, we've got the upcoming information sessions for Power Up Your Business, and we are hosting the Small Business Administration's Emerging Leaders Program. So with all of those opportunities for you to get the information that you need, it doesn't mean that all of those topics are being covered. So if there is something that has really been a challenge for you, if it's been a challenge for you, it's probably a challenge for other business owners also. So we really like to hear from you to make sure that we are responding to the needs of the marketplace. We don't just want to, and that's where we get these topics. When we hear from you, we put together these webinars. Again, we find the subject matter experts, and then we roll out these webinars. So if we don't hear from you, then someone else is telling us, and we're responding to what they're saying. But if you have a particular need, please let us know, put it in the chat, and we will follow up and get the subject matter experts to deliver that information to you. So with that, we've got these other webinars that are coming up this week. Again, on this afternoon, we are working with the Small Business Administration in offering the shuttered venue operators grant program. So we're going to talk about how you can access those grants. Even though the Small Business Administration has not yet released guidance, we at least want to get you ready for it. When they do, you'll know exactly what documents are being requested. So for that, it is for operators, whether it's a theater operator, whether it is a facility that has fixed seats. So you have to have fixed seats, and you have to have a brick and mortar facility. So we encourage you, if that's you or organizations or companies that you know, please invite them to this afternoon and then tomorrow afternoon. And then on Thursday of this week, we are going through the new small business funding programs. You don't want to miss this. Comcast Rise has identified 5 cities throughout the United States And in each of those cities, they will accept applications and then make grants of $10,000 to 100 businesses. So there will be 100 businesses in Philadelphia that will apply and be awarded grants. And these grants are in response to the negative impact that this COVID-19 pandemic has had on businesses that are owned by Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color. So we want you to make sure that you are with us on this Thursday. We're going to talk about the Comcast Rise grants. We're also going to talk about the new Pennsylvania COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Program grants. That's a mouthful, and the acronym is called CHIRP, CHIRP. And for both of these grant programs, the application period has not yet opened. So we're giving you the chance to hear about them, learn how you can apply, when the application periods will open, and make sure that you are getting a jump start on how you can apply for these programs. In the hospitality industry, it's for restaurant owners. If you're a small business in a commercial corridor, you've got a small restaurant or cafe, or you're a caterer, you know someone who's in the food service business, all of those entities are eligible for this new state grant program. The grants are from $5,000 up to $50,000. And so there are other eligibility requirements, but we want to make sure you have as much information as you can in preparation for when the programs open. Then again, if you are an airport vendor, if you operate a kiosk, maybe you're one of the small businesses at the airport and you've got a kiosk where you're offering product, then we encourage you to join us on next week, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, where we will we'll have our partners from the Small Business Administration talking specifically to those vendors about the PPP program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And it's not closed. So if you happen to not be an airport vendor, you are still welcome to come and get more information. And then again, we talked about the information sessions that we have coming up, the emerging leaders, the 2021 cohort. Please make sure you join us on next week for March 4th, and then for the upcoming information sessions that we have with the Power Up Your Business. We will be concluding our 6-month, 6-part mental health series, which is it just me? And the response to that is no, it's not just you. Within this pandemic, there have been a lot of new feelings that people have been experiencing, emotional, psychological. This is the last part of that 6-part series. We have the good pleasure of having Dr. Robin Smith, who is a nationally known psychologist, who will be leading that webinar. She's going to talk about finding joy during difficult times. So we've gone through six months. We've been partnering with the Scattergood Foundation and Spectrum Health Services. And so we're ending that 6-part series on a high note. So make sure you are registering for that. And that is the 3rd Tuesday in March. And that is March 16th, 9 o'clock in the morning. So please make sure you are signing up for that. Here is the information on Power Up Your Business information sessions. Please come out March 9th, and then we're going to repeat the session on March 25th. We want to make sure you have all the information that you need to apply for this free program. And as Ellen mentioned, with the rebuild projects, which are being funded through the sugary beverage tax, this Power Up Your Business is also funded through the sugary beverage tax. It is free to you. And so we want to make sure that all of these resources that are available to you free of charge, that you are taking advantage of it. So please make sure you're staying in contact with PIDC, get on our mailing list, and you will receive our newsletter, which comes out once a month, but it will also get you on our mailing list to receive all of the emails that we produce, that Jasmine and Quinn do such a great job in producing on a regular basis. So So you'll get emails weekly about the things that are happening, the events that are upcoming. Also, make sure you're following us on social media. Jasmine is on Facebook, she's on Twitter, she's on LinkedIn, just to make sure that we are getting that you can't say, well, I didn't know. Okay. Also, to get replays of all the webinars, we put those on our website. So if you happen to miss one of our webinars or you were only able to pick up a part of it, please go to the website, you follow the link, pick up not only the presentation, but the audio of the presentation. So you get to pick up all of those little nuances that are not captured in the presentation. So we thank you for today, being with us today. Jasmine, Quinn, Stanley. Stanley is on the line. So anytime that people don't know where to find the information, Stanley is the point of contact at PIDC. Stanley, good morning. Do you want to say anything to our guests?
No, not really. Everyone have a great day. Thank you for joining us.
Great. So again, if you can't find us anywhere, call our main number. And even though our offices are not physically open, we are responding to telephone calls, emails. Stanley is still the front door of PIDC. So if there's anything that you can't find on the website, just call the number and Stanley's going to answer the phone. He's going to distribute that information to the appropriate person at PIDC to make sure that we are responding to your inquiries. Jasmine, anything before we end up?
Marla, I think you said it all perfectly. Thank you so much to everyone for attending.
Quinn? We don't hear Quinn. All right, Ellen, you're going to, let me see. I've got Anthony. Anthony is on the line. Anthony, is there anything you want to say as we close out? Anthony is one of my colleagues. He works in financial services. Anything, Anthony? Anthony's being shy. All right, Ellen, you're going to close us out then. It's 10:36.
I am.
You're going to close us out.
Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions about bonding or the Rebuild Ready program, please get in touch with me and we can get you enrolled.
Great. Okay, everyone, we are 7 minutes over our 10:30 time. We look forward to seeing you really soon as this afternoon. Take good care. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.